Morning, guys. Morning, guys. How's it going? My name is Ben, physical therapist at Truth, and today we are going to be talking about ergonomics. So, I know a lot of you are probably working from home now and have made kind of a makeshift desk setup at home, and this can lead to, if it's not ergonomically set up correct, it can lead to increase in neck tightness, shoulder pain, and also some low back pain as well. So we're going to go over a few quick tips that you guys can utilize. We're not going to go into like super specific, like, oh, the armrest needs to be at so and so inches or anything like that. We're not going to get into that in depth with it. But I'm going to give you guys some actionable tips that you guys can utilize today right away. And then if any questions come up, just type it in the comments. I'm happy to answer those as well. So gonna get my tips out here. So one thing that we want to address first is mouse. Okay, so we don't want to have this mouse where it's too far out in front of us. Okay, because the further that mouse gets away from us, the straighter that arm's going to be. All right, and what I want you to do is I want you to put your hand on your upper trap. Okay, that's muscle right here, kind of that connects the neck, the shoulder here. All right, and what I want you to do is raise your arm up. Okay, do you feel that muscle activate? All right, that's your upper trap. Okay, and the further you get your arm out, the more that upper trap is going to activate. It's not going to be the same extent that it was when you raised your arm up, but it's still going to be somewhat active. And you can imagine if this is somewhat active, even just a little bit for 8 hours throughout the day, it's going to get really tight. This can lead to headaches. It can lead to just shoulder discomfort in general. Can lead to fatigue. So we want to keep this, okay, this elbow at like 90 degrees, okay, like this. All right, we don't want to be out here. So we want to keep that mouse nice and tight and close to us. We also don't want our arm way out here like this. All right, so what I want you to do is put your hand on your muscle here and raise your arm up. Okay, do you feel that same muscle activating? Okay, it doesn't matter if it's straight out in front or if it's out to the side, that muscle's still going to activate. So we don't want to be leaning like this either. Okay, keep that elbow nice and tight inside. Okay, so that's a big one. All right, and that's where I see most people that come in and see me. I mean, it's super common is this tightness up here. Okay, and this is one of the first things that we have to address, and it makes a world of difference. So if I could choose one thing for you guys to implement today, it's this one. Okay. Next thing would be armrests. Okay, it goes to with regards to the upper trap. Okay, so these armrests I kind of moved them so they're not appropriate for me. Okay, so you guys can kind of see. All right, so these armrests are a little bit high for me. All right, so you can see how my shoulders are kind of shrugging. Okay, we should ideally be like here. Okay, where my arms are down. Okay, we don't want to be up here like this, because guess what? If these armrests are too high, now we're in a shrugging position. Okay, shrug your shoulders and then touch these muscles again. Okay, do you notice how they're tight? Okay, you can imagine if we're sitting like this throughout the day, these are going to get pretty darn tight. So where should your armrests be? They should be you still want them to be supporting you. You just don't want them to be pushing your arms up like this. Okay, so you're shrugging your shoulders. All right, but we don't want it to be like non-existent either. Okay, we want to have some support with that, because if we don't and we're just like our arms are just dangling, it can also cause some tightness in the shoulders. Not to the same extent that they're hiked up, but we do want some support for your arms throughout the day. All right, so that's a big one. Computer monitor. So what we ideally want is we want that monitor right in front of us. Okay, we don't want it to be off-centered. Okay, so if we're like this, if I'm ideally my body's facing this way and I'm looking this way for 8 hours a day, I'm going to get a lot of tightness on both sides here. Okay, especially on this right side. Okay, since I'm turning. And so we want to make sure everything's in straight alignment. Okay. One golden rule to use with this is imagine that you are standing, okay, and just looking straight ahead. That's ideally the spinal column. That's the way we want the body to be oriented with regards to the spinal column. Okay, we don't want any rotation. We don't want any shrugging. We want to just mimic where our spinal column alignment would be as if we were standing in normal posture. Okay, that's what we want to replicate here. All One other thing I want to address is this is a side tangent. Is I get like what is the ideal posture, like the best posture? Okay, there's no ideal posture. Okay, there might be some that are somewhat better than one another. However, the worst posture that you can assume is one that you assume for 8 hours a day. What I mean by that is we don't want to be stuck in the same stagnant posture for 8 hours a day. Even if we do that with something called ideal posture and kind of what I'm showing you today, it's still going to lead to discomfort and pain because our body's not designed to be sitting for 8 hours a day. Okay. So I mentioned this in, well, I think Allison might be releasing this later today. A tip on with regards to ergonomics, and it's not even doesn't even go to actual posture. It just talks about how we should be sitting for an hour, standing for an hour, and then walk 5 to 10 minutes. And you just do that and repeat throughout the day. Okay, our body needs movement. Okay, and so that's one way to make sure we're changing positions, right, and not getting stuck in this one stagnant place. Right, and that's going to make a world of difference for not only your neck, but especially your low back as well. Okay, and then let's go over keyboard wrist positioning. All right, so I think you guys can see the keyboard here. If you can't, let me know. But in my screen here, it's showing me that you guys can. So what we don't want is what we ideally would want something here, okay, like a wrist support, okay, to elevate our wrists, okay, something to place underneath my wrist here. Because if I'm here like this and typing, you see how my wrists have to lift up to type, okay? That puts a lot of strain on these muscles here to continuously and repetitively lift up like this, okay? So if we have something underneath here, okay, now our wrists are more in a neutral position. Now do you see how my wrists don't have to lift up constantly? And if my hand's not, and my wrist isn't having to constantly lift my hands up, it relaxes these muscles a lot. Okay, this can lead to lateral epicondylitis or tennis elbow if we don't have this. Okay, so ideally get a strip or a cushion here to elevate those wrists. Okay, it'll take a lot of pressure off that. Okay. And then let's go over, I'm going to swing the chair around. Actually, let's go over one other thing while we're here before I do that. So there's a lot of people that will have dual monitors, okay? One here and one here, okay? You ideally want to get those as close together as possible so you're not having your head on a swivel throughout the day, okay? We want to ideally keep those close together, and then we can, instead of having to turn our head, all we have to do is, move our eyes left versus right. You could get a little bit of a slight head turn, obviously, and stuff like that, but the closer we get those monitors together, the less head turning we have to do, okay? And then with regards to monitor height, we want that right at eye level, okay? That center of that monitor should be right at eye level, okay? If it's too low, then we're gonna be looking down, okay? And then these muscles can get pretty darn tight. And if it's too high, then the neck muscles in the back get pretty darn tight too, okay? One thing too, to give you guys kind of like biomechanic background on this. So the reason that the upper trap muscle gets so darn tight is because that muscle has to contract to hold our head up. Okay, so if our monitor is way up here, for us to lift our head, okay, that muscle in the back of the neck has to contract to lift our head up. And that can lead to a whole lot of tightness, okay, through here. Same thing as if we're sitting with bad posture and we're rounded out like this, okay? If I'm keeping my spinal column of my neck in a neutral position, I'm like looking kind of down at an angle right now, okay? With bad posture. If I wanted to look up at the computer screen, do you see how this is kind of like shortened and this is elongated, okay? Again, we talked about how that upper trap attaches here, and when it contracts, it lifts that head up and provides that support. So it leads to, that's another reason a lot of people have a lot of that neck tightness is because they're slouched over like this. And then for them to be able to look up, that muscle has to contract, leading to a lot of pain. So watch what happens if I just fix my posture. Okay, do you see I'm sitting up nice and tall now? Now my neck is in a perfect position. I don't have to be looking up, looking down. Just by moving my low back and my mid back, that kind of allows the neck to align in the proper positioning without cranking up like this or looking straight down. Now I can look straight ahead at the monitor. Okay. Also, when we have bad posture like this and rounding out, these muscles get pretty darn tight in the shoulder. And so if I'm trying to lift my arms up, with bad posture like this is as far as I can go. Literally, that's as far as I can go with bad posture. If I just fix my low back and my mid back positioning and sit like I'm supposed to, you see how much further my arms can go? All right. So you can imagine if you're, and this goes back to when everything goes back to normal, you guys are able to come back into truth and work out again. One reason that people get so much shoulder pain, especially in the front of the shoulder, is they sit at work for 8 hours a day, and then they come in and do a workout, and their posture, because they've been in this hunchback position for 8 hours a day, they try and go do overhead movements, and now they're jamming and getting some pinching and impingement on that front of the shoulder, leading to a lot of pain, right? So if we fix our posture and we're not in this hunch over position, it's going to decrease our risk for shoulder injury significantly, okay? Because now we can actually reach overhead like we're meant to. Okay? I'm going to swing the chair over here real quick so you guys can see my low back positioning. We're going to talk about how that low back positioning affects the shoulder and what you guys can do about that. Let's see if we can get this set up here. Okay. All right. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me know if you can't. All right. So if I don't have a whole lot of low back support, okay, this is going to lead to slouching. Okay, like this. If I can get my low back to have some support, what it'll do is it'll help put me in a more neutral position of the spine. What I mean by that is we're supposed to have a curve in our low back here. Okay, that's natural. Okay, can you guys see that? You guys can. Let me see if we can get a different chair so the armrest is in the way. Okay. So if you look at my low back here, you guys can see that there's a curve. Okay, everybody has it. Everybody should. Okay, we're supposed to maintain that. You can see if I maintain that, look at my shoulder positioning. Okay, I'm nice and tall and upright. If I lose that low back positioning and start rounding out, watch what happens to my shoulders. Now as far as I can lift up, right? If I fix my low back positioning and go here, look how much further I can go now. Okay, so we can make a world of difference at our shoulder and our upper trunk by manipulating and changing our low back support. So what you can do is you can take, like, if you don't want to go buy anything, you can just use a rolled up towel and place that behind your low back. Okay, you don't want that like way down. You don't want to place that towel way down here. All that's going to do is scoot our hips forward. Okay, and then now we've got a further way to go until our back reaches that chair. It can actually make it worse. So what you need to do is back your hips all the way up to the chair. Then you take the towel and place it and that arch of that low back. Okay, and then sit back. Okay, now that's going to help support that low back and support and help change the biomechanics of the shoulder positioning and that mid back as well. Okay, so a lot of times it's actually the low back that can be causing shoulder pain or neck tightness as well. I'm going to go kind of backtrack on that too a little bit on if we don't have that low back support and we're rounded out like this, and we talked about how what happens if our shoulders round forward, and if I want to look up, again, look how much my neck is elongated here and how much this upper trap is going to have to contract to hold my head up, leading to a whole lot of upper neck, okay, and upper trap tightness. Okay? And this can also decrease if you sit with good posture and whatnot. It's going to help decrease headaches as well in a large majority of cases. Okay, a lot of times, a lot of you guys probably didn't know this, but a lot of times headaches can actually be treated by physical therapy. Okay, and the reason for that, just a little bit of brief anatomy, is we have occipital nerves. Okay, they're nerves that attach from here and they come up and attach kind of at the, they originate here and then they come around the side of the head. Okay, and if those nerves are triggered or irritated, it can cause quite a bit of headaches. Okay, so how do these nerves get pinched down or irritated? It goes back to that upper trap. We talked about how that upper trap muscle, okay, it attaches at the base of the skull, and it comes down here and attaches at the shoulder, and then it also kind of makes a triangle, comes down there and attaches at the spine. Okay. And so if we're sitting with bad posture and that upper trap's getting really tight, it's going to compress down on those occipital nerves. If those nerves are being compressed down, you're going to generate headaches. Okay. So any tension headaches that you guys are experiencing are large majority of the time causing from this upper trap or neck tightness. Okay. Totally fixable. All right. So those are the main key points. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything, but those are a lot of corrections that you guys can make right away. Don't want to overwhelm you. One last thing would be phone positioning or getting a headset or AirPods or something like that. Okay, because if we are answering the phone and we're holding that phone against our shoulder like this, that upper trap is constantly being acted to hold that shoulder down. Okay, so we want to make sure we don't have that. Okay, so make sure you get headsets or something where you can maintain a neutral position. And also on top of that, we don't want to be holding the phone up to our ear. So that's what we talked about, how if we raise our arm up to the front or out to the side, it can cause that upper trap to fire, okay, and contract. So if we're holding the phone up for hours on end, it's going to get that upper trap to kind of fire and be overactive. So that's another thing to take a look at as well. One last thing too is we're going to talk about how it kind of affects the lower body too. Okay, we talked a lot about the upper body. So when we are in a seated position, our hip flexors get pretty darn tight and they're put in a shortened position. What I mean by that is, so our hip flexors attach from the front of our hip here, okay, and extend down here. So when we're standing there in an elongated position, when we go to sit, now they're in a shortened position. Okay? If we maintain this for 8 hours a day and don't walk, don't stand or anything, these are shortened in a shortened position for 8 hours a day, it's going to lead to low back pain. The reason for that is because these muscles have a direct attachment to the pelvis. Okay, and if they're pulling that pelvis down, it's going to change the orientation of it. And what's going to happen is it's going to cause an anterior pelvic tilt. What I mean by that is your butt's going to kind of stick out, and you're going to have extra rounding at that low back because you can't stand up all the way because it's causing tightness here. And it just changes that orientation of it. So that's something to be watching out for too. We don't want to be, if we have our chair way too, let me see if I change this height. So if I bring this chair down all the way to the floor, okay, I'm way above 90 degrees here. All right. So the higher that these legs get, the more shortened that psoas or that hip flexor is as well. Okay, leading to even more tightness throughout the day when we want to actually be walking and moving. Okay. So we want ideally your legs to be at 90 degrees. Okay, you see my legs here, 90 degrees. They're not super high up here, or they're not or the seat's not super high and I'm like this, right? We want to make sure our feet are still supported, feet flat on the floor, 90 degrees. Okay. Any questions on that at all? If there's any questions about any of this, let me know in the comment section. You can also private message me as well. But again, this is quite a bit of information. We'd even get into there's different markers and dimensions with regards to how many inches should the monitor be, how many inches should the mouse be, how high should the armrest be with regards to inches and different measurements. We didn't get in that today because I think this is already enough for you guys to start working on and start implementing. It's quite a bit there. What we're doing for this week is Dr. Colin and I are doing free ergonomic assessments virtually, okay, virtual sessions. And if you're interested in those, go ahead and just reach out to Allison or myself through private messaging, or you can find us on our website. We're also on Truth. So we're doing free ergonomic assessments. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through all these things and make sure that what we talked about today is all in place. And then we're also going to talk about those measurements too and start adding onto this so we get it perfected, because we're not quite sure on how long, this whole shelter in place is going to be going on for. And so it could be, quite a few more weeks where you guys are having to continue to use your home workstation. All right. And we don't want to when we get out of this, okay, we talked about how when we if we're sitting with bad posture and our ergonomics aren't correct, when we go to work out and stuff, that can be impacted. okay, with regards to how we move, shoulder pain, low back pain, and stuff like that too. So when this is all over with, we want to make sure your transition back into working out is smooth. And one way to do that is making sure your ergonomic setup is correct. So again, just let us know if you're interested in that free ergonomic assessment. We're happy to do that this week for this. So this is the only week we're offering it. So don't wait. But yeah, hopefully you guys found this beneficial. And again, if you have any quick questions, just let me know. I'm happy to help out any way that I can. All right, thanks guys. Hope you guys have a good Tuesday. All right, bye.